The sun was setting as Zoe sat in the living room, quietly flipping through a Bible. The soft hum of worship music played in the background, but her mind was elsewhere. She had just come back from another church service, and as always, Eve had received a powerful prophecy. "You will be great," the pastor had declared in light to the nations. It seemed like this was her sister's life. Every time they stepped into church, people spoke into Eve's future, while Zoe stood in silence, wondering if God had forgotten her. Zoe let out a sigh, her eyes tracing the words in front of her, but not really reading them. She closed the Bible and leaned back into the chair, staring out the window. Eve walked into the room, fleshly, showered and in her pajamas, her hair still wet. She smiled when she saw Zoe's expression. "Another one of those moments, huh?" Eve asked, her voice gentle. Zoe didn't answer immediately. Instead, she ran a hand through her hair. "Why does it feel like I'm invisible?" she said quietly. "Every time we go to church, it's always you getting those prophecies. You will be great, you will have a bright future, and me? Nothing." Eve sat beside her, her tone soft but firm. "Zoe, I don't think you should be focusing on that. You know how I feel about prophecy. It's not about who gets the spotlight. It's about what you do with what God has given you." Zoe's eyes flickered with frustration. "But it feels like I'm waiting for someone. Anything that God shows and has a plan for me too. I want to fall under the anointing like everyone else. Maybe then I will know God sees me. Maybe then I will know I'm meant for something bigger." Eve frowned, her face full of concern. "Zoe, falling under the anointing isn't what you should be chasing. It's about knowing God, not about an experience. Remember Elijah, his encounter with God wasn't in the earthquake, the fire, or the wind. It was in the still, small voice. We all want that moment, but God moves in so many ways, and trust me, He sees you." Zoe stayed silent for a moment, her fingers tracing the edge of the Bible. She wanted to believe Eve, but deep down she felt like something was missing in her own journey. "Maybe you're right," Zoe finally said, though her voice lacked conviction. "But sometimes it feels like I'm stuck." Eve squeezed her sister's hand. "You are not stuck, Zoe. You're on a journey. God's not done with you yet." Months passed and Zoe still couldn't shake the feeling of being overlooked. But one evening during her quiet time, something shifted. It was late and the room was dimly lit by the soft glow of a lamp. Zoe knelt beside her bed, her heart heavy with unanswered questions. "God," she prayed quietly, "I don't need a prophecy. I just need to know that you see me. Show me something, anything." She opened her Bible and began reading, her fingers brushing through the pages as she prayed. Her eyes stopped at a verse that seemed to jump out at her. "Seest thou a man diligent in his business? He shall stand before kings and not mere men." Proverbs 22:29. Zoe's breath caught in her throat. Diligence, that was the key. She didn't need to wait for someone to speak over her life. God was showing her that her future depended on her effort, her faithfulness, and her work. A wave of peace washed over her as she realized that she didn't have to chase fame or a prophecy. All she had to do was focus on the task at hand, her craft. The next morning, Zoe woke up with a renewed energy. She set her alarm earlier than usual. Got to start her day. As a fashion design student, she had always enjoyed her work, but now she had had a fire inside of her. She was determined to perfect her skills, to be more diligent in everything she did. No more waiting for the validation, as success would come from her effort, not from a prophecy. As the days turned into weeks, Zoe threw herself into her designs, pushing herself to learn more, to grow more, and to constantly improve. She sought mentors, attended workshops, and spent hours in front of her sewing machine, her hands becoming more skilled with every stitch. Her classmates began to notice, her professors started praising her work, and soon Zoe found herself winning small design competitions. Her confidence grew as her craft blossomed. Meanwhile, Eve's journey wasn't as smooth. Despite the many prophetic words spoken over her life, she began to realize that just having a prophecy wasn't enough. She had grown complacent, assuming that because people said she would be great, things would just fall into place. But nothing was happening. Her efforts were half-hearted, and her grades reflected that she hadn't put in the work that was required. One afternoon, as the twins sat together in a cafe, Zoe smiled at her sister. "I just finished a huge order for a client. I think this could really be a game changer for my business." Eve nodded. "Do." Her voice was tinged with a hint of sadness. "That's amazing, Zoe. I'm proud of you." She paused before adding, "But do you ever feel like I'm just waiting for things to happen?" Zoe looked at her sister, seeing the truth in her words. "Eve, prophecy isn't a free pass. It's like God gave you a map, but you still have to walk the path. You have to walk, to put in the effort. You can't just sit back and expect everything to fall into your lap." Eve's shoulders slumped. "I thought it would be easier than this. Everyone told me I would be great, but I didn't think it meant that I actually had to work hard for it." Zoe smiled gently. "I have learned that greatness doesn't come through waiting, it comes through diligence. God's plan for us are amazing, but we have to put in the effort." 2 years after graduation, Zoe had built a thriving fashion business. Her designs were not only known but respected. She had worked tirelessly, and now she was reaping the rewards. Zoe sat in her studio one evening, sketching out new designs. She paused, looking at the window. "This is what it means to trust God's process," she thought.